Diabetes. You've probably heard that word 1,000 times. But what is it, really? And what's the deal with type 1 versus type 2? You know, it's often made out to be super complicated, but it all boils down to something surprisingly simple: a lock and a key. And today, we're going to break it all down.
Okay, so I want you to imagine your body as this incredible, bustling city. Every single cell is like a little house, and every one of those houses needs a constant supply of fuel to keep the lights on. But what if that citywide fuel delivery system just ground to a halt?
This is really the heart of the matter. It all comes down to a lock and a key. So what happens if the key that unlocks the door to your house to get that fuel inside suddenly goes missing? Or what if you've got plenty of keys, but the locks on all the doors have just gotten rusty and stubborn? That's the question we're diving into. So before we get into what goes wrong, let's take a quick look at how the system is supposed to work. This is our baseline, the lock and key working in perfect harmony.
Right, so the fuel for our entire city is something called glucose. It's pretty simple. When you eat food, your body breaks it down into this sugar. Then it travels through your bloodstream, kind of like a fleet of delivery trucks on a highway, heading out to every single house that needs power.
But here's the catch. That fuel can't just barge in through the front door. Nope, it needs a key. And that key is a hormone called insulin. Your pancreas? Think of it as the master key factory, pumping out these little keys every single time you eat.
And this is how it should be. The insulin key slides into the lock on the cell, the door swings open, and that glucose rushes right in to provide energy. When this system is working, your blood sugar stays nice and stable. It's an elegant, efficient process.
Okay, so what happens when this beautifully simple system breaks? This is where we get to the core of diabetes. Both type 1 and type 2 are problems with this lock and key system. But, and this is crucial, they are two fundamentally different problems.
Here it is, the big difference right here. With type 1, it's basically an inside job. Your own immune system gets confused and attacks the pancreas, the key factory, and shuts down production. In type 2, the factory is still working, but the locks on all the houses, on the cells, they've gotten rusty and resistant.
And when you look at the sheer scale of this, it's pretty staggering. Type 2 diabetes accounts for about 95% of all cases. So the vast majority of people with diabetes are dealing with the rusty lock problem, not the autoimmune one.
So let's go back to our analogy for type 1. This is the no keys problem. The body's own defense system has mistakenly destroyed the key factory. The result? No keys are being made. None. So the fuel can't get into the cells.
With type 2, it's a completely different story. This is our rusty lock problem. The factory is still making keys, sometimes it's even working overtime, but the locks on the cells are just stiff. This is what doctors mean when they say insulin resistance. It takes more and more keys, more jiggling to get those doors to open. And over time, the pancreas can actually get worn out from overproducing and just can't keep up with the demand. So how on earth do you know if you're dealing with a no keys or a rusty lock problem? Well, it all starts with learning to read your body's signals. See, when all that fuel can't get into the houses, it just starts piling up in the streets, in your bloodstream. This is called hyperglycemia. Your body desperately tries to get rid of the excess sugar, which is why you're constantly thirsty and running to the bathroom. And even though there's tons of fuel around, the houses are starving, right? That's why you feel ravenously hungry, you might lose weight, and you're just totally wiped out.
So the symptoms are a huge clue, but the official diagnosis usually comes from a blood test called the A1C, and a result of 6.5% or higher, well, that's the number that tells your doctor you have diabetes. But what does that number even mean?
It's actually a pretty clever test. Think of it like this. A regular finger prick blood sugar test is like taking a single snapshot of the traffic on the highway right now. The A1C test is more like a time-lapse video of that traffic over the last 2 to 3 months. It gives you a much better picture of how things have been going long-term. Now, getting a diagnosis is not the end of the road. Not at all. It's really the beginning of learning how to take control of the system. So let's look at the toolkit for managing diabetes. Management really stands on 3 core pillars. It all starts with the foundation, lifestyle and diet. Then it's about being aware, constantly knowing your numbers through glucose monitoring. And finally, it's about using the right medications as tools to help the system get back on track.
And lifestyle isn't some vague, fuzzy concept. It means real, concrete actions. For example, regular exercise actually helps clean those rusty locks, making your cells more sensitive to insulin again. A balanced diet provides a steady, manageable stream of fuel instead of a massive flood. These are incredibly powerful tools. Now, medication is where the two paths really diverge. For type 1, the no keys problem, the solution is direct. You have to supply the keys. That means insulin therapy for life. But for type 2, the rusty lock problem, the first goal is usually to make the existing system work better. That's where oral medications often come in first, though some people might need insulin later on.
And all of this brings us to our final and frankly most important section, why this daily, consistent management is absolutely 100% non-negotiable.
So why is it so critical? Well, think of it this way. Chronically high blood sugar is like pouring a corrosive liquid through your body's pipes. Over time, it damages blood vessels, big and small, everywhere. And that damage can lead to really serious long-term problems with your heart, your kidneys, your eyes, and your nerves. This quote from our source material really just sums it all up perfectly. Strict glycemic control is crucial in preventing. The key word there is preventing. Keeping your blood sugar well managed isn't just about feeling better today, it's about actively preventing these complications down the road. It's about putting the power back in your own hands. You know, understanding the mechanics of diabetes is a huge first step. But when you realize that nearly 34 million people in the US alone are living with this, the question gets a lot bigger. It becomes about all of us. How can we build a world, a society, that makes it easier for everyone to live well with this condition? It's a big question, and it's one we're thinking about. Thanks for tuning in.